Did you know Microsoft has officially ended support for Windows 10? Upgrade to Windows 11 with an LG Gram laptop. Voted PC Mag's Reader's Choice Top Laptop Brand for 2025. Thin and ultra lightweight, the LG Gram keeps you productive anywhere. And Windows 11 gives you access to free security updates and ongoing feature upgrades. Visit lgusa.com/iHeart for great seasonal savings on LG Gram laptops with Windows 11. PC Mag Reader's Choice used with permission. All rights reserved.
2 hours ago, Kyle arrived at the bar.
Hey, what's everyone drinking?
30 minutes ago, Kyle got his friends another round of drinks.
Cheers!
5 minutes ago, Kyle decided to drive home drunk. A minute ago, a law enforcement officer pulled up behind Kyle.
Sir, have you been drinking tonight?
A chain of events that began 2 hours ago is about to change Kyle's whole world. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy Holiday.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we're going to say goodbye to 2025 by looking ahead to 2026 and talking about what stories in Birdland we're looking forward to the most next year. But we've got also a free agent signing to break down as Zach Eflin re-signs with the Orioles on a one-year contract. And that will all be on tonight's episode. But first, as we like to do at the top of every episode, we want to welcome a couple new members to our Patreon community. And for that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Thank you so much, honestly, as we are about to turn the page on this year and move over to hopefully a bigger and better 2026. But thank you so much to Garrett Johnson and also Christopher Herschel, who both signed up for a year up front at the AA level. Buckle up, guys. I think you're going to enjoy your stay.
Absolutely. And as a reminder, we are going to begin our top 50 prospects countdown next week. That will be available in the form of daily podcasts exclusive to patrons. So be sure to sign up before we get started with that. And now we'll get into some news on the Major League front. Zach Eflin and the Orioles agreed to terms on a one-year contract with a mutual option for 2027. The base salary for 2026 is $10 million, but that includes $3 million signing bonus plus a $5 million salary for the coming season and a $2 million buyout on the mutual option. Now, keep in mind, mutual options are rarely ever exercised, so most likely this is effectively going to be a one-year deal. Still, Eflin could bump up the value of the contract with some escalators based on the number of starts that he has in 2026. And in 2026, Eflin's going to look to turn the page on a disappointing 2025 season that began with some hope as he was the Orioles' opening day starter, but then ultimately turned into an injury-riddled season that saw him struggle when he was on the mound. Overall, Eflin posting a 5.93 ERA to go as a 5.64 FIP in 71 in the third innings pitched. There has been a lot written about Eflin's struggles last year. Andy Koska at the Baltimore Banner even broke them down in real time last year, noting how the injuries that Eflin had, first a lat and then later a back injury, were affecting his release point, which was causing his stuff to diminish a little bit. Going into this offseason, I think we knew Eflin was not getting a qualifying offer, but whether or not he would return to Baltimore seemed uncertain until Sunday night when this news broke. And Nick, what's your thoughts on this move, which kind of came as a surprise, but in some ways...
Yeah, this move was actually something that I've been thinking about a lot this offseason. Especially you go back to like one of the early offseason mailbag questions we got, and like who was a true like depth AAA guy, like the one where we like think gross that you want to bring into Norfolk, and the Rosny Contreras type guy or whatever. I thought it was a great question because that got me on the Austin Gomber train ever since, because that's what I want to think about all offseason long. Luckily, the Orioles this offseason has given us a lot more to talk about than that. But I was kind of thinking like, all right, what about a little bit of a different path? What about Zach Eflin? Like, what if the Orioles are comfortable with where he's at in his development? They're going to know better than anybody where he's at, even if he's not going to be available until June or July when he's fully back and ready to go. I would like that could be a really good signing as like, okay, you get to insert Zach Eflin into your rotation. come midseason. Again, not knowing his rehab status and where he's at physically, but like if he's progressing well and no other team is really in on him, bring him back. But yeah, so like while we're completely unsure now about his back, what his back's going to feel like in 3-4 months, and whether or not he can be effective again, I think for the Orioles to sign him now, I really like this move. I feel a little bit more hopeful as well. No one knows like the health status again better than the Orioles, so they must feel good about where he's at. And maybe this is also a situation where his representation went to the team and was like, "Hey, we've got other offers or at least real interest from other teams. Just to give you heads up." And so the Orioles smell other people swimming around. They jumped and locked him in because they feel like he can make some sort of impact in 2026. So I'm not immediately buying into the greatest shape of my life quotes that we got the other day. Those are fun. Let's make sure the first bullpen session is 7 days from now, 8 days from now. Let's make sure that goes well first, and it's not radio silence. We get to June 7th to June 8th, and we still haven't heard anything. But hopefully he's able to build on that first. And then this is also just another like example of positivity for hopefully more potential additions this offseason and additions moving forward. Like the rest of the league, the players, the agents, they're all watching Ryan Helsley, Pete Alonso, and now Zach Eflin sign with Baltimore and speak glowingly about why they decided to sign here. And sure, some of it is that like, endear yourself to a new fan base and home crowd, yada, yada. But Pete Alonso didn't have to come to Baltimore. Eflin could have just walked away, retired, or said, I do feel great, but I want to get away from that situation in Baltimore. I want to go somewhere else and get a fresh start. But he clearly loves this organization. And as he said, he wants to make it right with the fans for his performance last year. So just overall, my initial thought is like, I'm actually glad he's back. This is a move I already wanted to see happen. In addition to 2 other good arms, the work isn't done. But like to hear that he's optimistic about where he's at physically and to see the team jump on that deal when they did, I like it just that much more.
First of all, great comments, Nick. But first of all, if you were an Orioles patron in the Orioles Discord, you knew about this breaking news 3 hours before it was reported out. Just throwing that out there for anyone still on the fence about maybe signing up for the Patreon as the new year comes close. But yeah, I like the signing. Would I have liked it if this was a week before spring training started, week before pitchers and catchers, and the Orioles didn't get Framber, didn't get Amai, didn't get Suarez? No, probably not. I mean, I would have said probably like they had to get someone, at least it's someone familiar. But the fact that this happened still in December of 2025, we're still a month and a half away from pitchers and catchers. And immediately reports are this changes nothing as far as the Orioles' pursuit of pitching goes. So clearly this is a depth move, which why not overcompensate when it comes to depth after last season? And the fact that, yeah, Eflin, his comments, it seems like maybe he did have some interest and was like, look, are you interested? Because we'd prefer to come back. But if not, we have some other things we can do over here. And the Orioles probably did the physical and we're like, yeah, let's go. And yeah, best shape of my life, feeling incredible after back surgery. Probably not 100% accurate, but I'm sure he feels good. Glad he's also made himself occupied on January 6th, just in case, you never know. And also, like, yeah, if he is healthy and if his arm slot can tick back up as it slowly went down from 23 to 24 to 25, compensating for the back and other injuries, if he can get that arm slot back, maybe add a tick of velocity back as well. Yeah, I mean, like Vivek says in the chat, 1 year ago, we were having extension discussions. He started opening day. We were thrilled to have Zach Eflin. One injury-riddled poor season later, when he hadn't had an xERA FIP or xFIP above 4 or even touching 4 since 2019, Eflin's a good pitcher. If he's healthy, if he's right, he's going to pitch well as your 4th through 6th starter, depending on how everything else goes. And I feel like this also opens up other options when it comes to leverage in free agent and trade negotiations. We got it back now after trading Grayson. We kind of lost some. Now we have Shane Baz in tow. We have Zach Eflin as a 5th starter if the season started today. Could potentially still sign someone, maybe flip a Kramer or a Povich in another deal. options are open now to finish out this offseason in the next month or so.
Two things I will say about the move that I think are positives. One, if you were going to bring Eflin back, I'm glad that they did it now and didn't wait until February to do it, because I do think that being able to monitor him, have him officially in the fold now over the next couple of months is really going to be key to knowing, is he going to be ready by opening day? If he's not going to be ready by opening day, how far out are we looking into the season? Is it mid-April? Is it a little bit further than that? At least now you can start to plan for that. The other thing, too, you touched on this, it's depth. You have to have more depth. And I think that one of the things, we've picked apart the flaws of the 2025 Orioles up one side and down the other. But one thing that I keep coming back to is that not only were they too thin at the major league level, but they were really too thin at AAA last year. After Brandon Young went to the majors, there was really nothing left in AAA where, okay, here's someone you feel comfortable coming up for 2 or 3 starts while somebody's on the IL. They needed a Spencer Watkins type in Norfolk last year, and they didn't have that. By bringing in Eflin, this isn't to say that Eflin is that guy, because he's clearly not. But by bringing in Eflin, you can have Brandon Young be that guy now rather than throwing out of the Major League bullpen if he's not traded. If Cade Povich isn't traded, you could have Povich in the bullpen as a long man now, or you could have him in Norfolk. I think that building up the depth at AAA has to be a priority this offseason. It's a very quiet one, and it's not one that takes precedence over signing Framber Valdez or another top-tier starter or trading for a top-tier starter. But it is something that has to be done, and I think that the Eflin move has implications in that area.
Yeah, and I don't know if we mentioned this, but Dean Kramer and Tyler Wells also have options if necessary. I don't think that's really a path they're going to go, but when it comes to how they're going to juggle all these pitchers if they do sign another starter, like Mike Elias has said this all season, look, we want talent. If we have too much, that's a problem we can sort out when the time comes. But yeah, I think Zach Eflin, it sounds like he wants to be here. Sounds like he loves the members that are on this team. I love the quote where he's like, "We want to win a World Series." Yes, we do. As Dan Sanchez said on Blue Sky, say it again. Shout it from the rafters. Love the confidence. And look, if he's a good veteran clubhouse guy, certainly not a guy you are opposed to having in the clubhouse.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing now is like this. Eflin's not going to work out of the bullpen. Like, he was signed to start games, and like this move does not stop the Orioles from acquiring another arm. Like, again, Eflin was signed to be a starter and really fortify the back end of this rotation. You can still, Amaya's deadline is less than 72 hours away now. Is it Friday, 5:00? Without even getting into like his stuff and potential, just the fact that I think there's no draft pick attached there. It's just dollars. I think Amaya makes a ton of sense for the Orioles. Obviously, it makes a ton of sense for a lot of teams, but
do we really think the Chicago White Sox are the front runners to sign him? Like, that seems like come on, guys, let's give us some offers here.
No, I don't know, but like some teams are actually doing some weird things. Like, I don't know. But yeah, I don't buy the White Sox thing. Someone is going to pay up a little bit for him. And if it's the Orioles, great. Like, I think he just makes a lot of sense there. And yeah, Framber's still available. Ranger Suarez is still available. Zach Gallen is even still available. Like, pros and cons to each of these guys. We've talked about them before. I'm sure we'll talk about them again if the Orioles do or don't sign these guys, depending on how the rest of the offseason shakes out. But like, there are still options there that the Orioles can go after. On the free agent side, I do think a trade might be a little less likely after the Shane Baz trade. Just seeing what they gave up for him, I wasn't able to do that show because I had the worst birthday of probably my life, and it happened on my birthday. But it's just the volume that they gave up. I feel like to go out and get a Joe Ryan or somebody, I think that's a little less likely at this point. But at the same time, like Bob touched on this earlier, could this open up, a Povich or one of these depth guys now that potentially gets kicked out of starting rotation? Do they draw interest on the trade market? Obviously, Elias has been working the trade phones for all offseason, so we don't know where those discussions are at with certain teams, but does that open things up more? You also have Kobe Mayo there. do the Orioles continue to just shock everybody? And does Cody Bellinger or Kyle Tucker even not get the market that they're hoping for? And they end up in Baltimore for some reason. And that opens up Beavers or somebody else in the outfield. Like, the options are still plentiful. And I think everything is still on the table, even after this Eflin signing. So, yeah, it's like figured out. Tyler Wells can go to the bullpen right now. I think we've all agreed for a while he could excel there. I'm hesitant to see him in a starting rotation across a full season just based on his history and so much missed time, but you can stretch him out in the bullpen across the full season, and we know he could be dominant there. And to have a potential rotation in no particular order of, Amai or Fromber, whoever, Bradish, Rogers, Shane Baz, Dean Kramer to start, prayers up, no injuries. Maybe you start Eflin on the IL. Even if he feels good, looks good in spring, you know he's going to have an innings cap, so you ease him into the season, start him on the IL. And if you have like Povich and Brandon Young in AAA to start, like that's amazing. If you don't trade them and go the free agent route for another starter, that would be awesome. Because like you said, that depth was non-existent last year, and that's not how it's going to shake out because this is real life and it's baseball. But the possibility of that and how all this shakes out is just like an unbelievable feeling here in December 30th.
Yeah. And while my dream offseason, the acquisition for the top of the rotation would probably still be Framber Valdez in like a 5-year deal to put at the top. Conspiracy brain, Zach Eflin, 6th starter. Tatsui Amai has never pitched in a 5-man rotation. Do we ease him in with the 6-man rotation? Maybe we're in the mix there. I don't know. Hopefully, but I just want us to, and I know we can't really be beggars and choosers considering all the stuff we've done so far this offseason already this quickly when everyone else has been very slow, but I want to get that last ace over with and then play with whatever else you want the rest of the offseason in your own pace. But come on, let's do this.
Yeah, and hopefully we will hear something on that front soon. We'll go now into what we're looking forward to in 2026, but first, we do want to take a moment to acknowledge 2025, such as it was. Usually, this episode at the end of the year is like a full-on recap of the year, but we decided we were kind of done talking about the 2025 Orioles, and honestly, the roster has turned over so quickly already this offseason that there really is nothing else left to say. But still, we thought that before we go and focus on 2026, we'd focus on maybe some of the positives or some of the silver linings that happened in 2025. So kind of just pull out some fond memories of last season. Bob, I'll start with you here.
Yeah, the fond memories basically started in June, if you're going to pick, because the first 2 months were an absolute nightmare. Almost tempted to just say, hey, we hired Albernaz as manager in 2025. But Trevor Rogers, that trade was derided almost immediately after it happened, especially after he made a few starts after the trade, did very poorly, was demoted to AAA, started spring training with a knee injury. I think he was slow played and didn't have the greatest success in his first few AAA starts either. So it seemed like, man, this trade went from bad to worse. For the real ones knew that this was a possibility, but Trevor Rogers comes up, has a hell of a season. Obviously didn't pitch enough innings to qualify for the ERA title or anything, but I wish I had it pulled up in front of me. Had like a 2 something ERA. Is that correct? Over like 120 some innings, 130 innings. Did I just make that up? Does anyone have it pulled up? All right. Yeah.
That sounds good.
But basically he pitched incredible for 4 months of the season. And yeah, even though Kyle Stowers went off in Miami in 2025, I think the Orioles still made a case for winning the trade just from the season that Rodgers had alone in 2025 and setting himself up for a free agent year, potentially, or maybe there's still an extension in the works for 2026. So I'd say Trevor Rogers was a very big bright spot in a dull season.
Yeah, obviously, like we could go on and on, I think, on the minor league side, but to keep this kind of short and sweet, other than the other obvious ones, like Basayo and getting the extension coming up. Yeah, the Basayo walk-off blast, that was a good one. Just the fact that we saw this big extension, I think, was pretty awesome in itself. Beavers coming up and not really struggling, kind of hitting the ground running, playing well. That was fun to see as well. Kyle Bradish coming back and looking very good. It was only about 30 something innings, but it wasn't like he looks rough at the end of the year. And we're sitting here having questions about, all right, what is Kyle Bradish going to give us next year? I think we're pretty hyped on what Kyle Bradish is going to bring next year. Other than that, I don't know. Like any moments, I've blocked all of last year out. I couldn't give you any specific moments. I would give a shout out because I'm going back and looking at this whole list real quick just to make sure I'm not missing anybody. But just a shout out to Cage Stroud, 2019 draft class. All the injury, the walk issues. You got 12th round pick from West Virginia. Michael Elias's first class. He's still here in the organization. He looked good last year as well. A small victory there out of the bullpen as well, but yeah, ready to turn the page as well.
Yeah, the only other thing that I think I would add, the breakup of the no-hitter against Yamamoto and the Dodgers, that was a lot of fun. Jeremiah Jackson, that was a fun storyline that nobody saw coming. I think even as we were following him in Norfolk when he was hitting, it's like, okay, well, if they trade Ramon Urias, they can at least see what they have here. I don't think any of us saw him performing that well when he got to the big leagues. And, if nothing else, I think that we'll hopefully remember 2025 as the year that forced the organization to make some necessary adjustments to get this back on track.
Yeah. Vivek in the chat also mentions Brandon Young, who not only did he almost throw a perfect game into the 8th inning, was it against the Astros? Pretty good team, and also had an immaculate inning this year. So even though his rookie season didn't necessarily, go amazingly, he had a couple of really good moments.
Drinking and driving is a decision that will change your whole world. Things will never be the same once you get a DUI, because legal fees and time in court are just the beginning. Getting into a crash is another way your world could be irreversibly changed after drinking and driving. Your vehicle may not be the only thing that gets damaged in that crash. You could face a life-altering injury or even death. But you're not the only one who could face those consequences. Your decision to drink and drive could permanently change someone else's world, whether you injure them or leave their loved ones grieving. The next time you're out drinking, call a rideshare, a taxi, a sober friend, or a designated sober driver. Always plan for a safe ride home. The only decision that'll change your world for the better is the decision to call for a sober ride. It's never worth it to drive drunk. Don't risk it. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
Did you know Microsoft has officially ended support for Windows 10? Upgrade to Windows 11 with an LG Gram laptop. Voted PC Mag's Reader's Choice Top Laptop Brand for 2025. Thin and ultra lightweight, the LG Gram keeps you productive anywhere. And Windows 11 gives you access to free security updates and ongoing feature upgrades. Visit lgusa.com/iHeart for great seasonal savings on LG Gram laptops with Windows 11. PC Mag Reader's Choice used with permission. All rights reserved.
He did, and we'll go over now to what we're looking forward to in 2026. And what we did was we broke this down into 3 categories. This being a minor league focused podcast, we're of course going to talk about prospects and our expectations for the 2026 minor league season. But we'll also talk about what we're looking forward to in the majors, not just with the Orioles, but league-wide, or perhaps a combination of the Orioles and league-wide. So we'll get into that in this episode, and we'll just go person by person in each category, starting with Nick in the minors. And if you've been reading our Substack, you know that this is something that Nick has written a lot about, and he's going to get a chance to touch on a little bit more here.
Yeah, for my minor league thing, I had 2 that I was going to look at, and to pick from. I was going to see if one of you guys are going to pick up the other one. You didn't, so I will just mention the international prospects. The next wave of those guys, I think, is going to have a big impact as well. But for me, I think one of the big things on the minor league side that I'm really anxious to watch in 2026 is like the 2025 draft class, but specifically the pitchers in that draft class. Michael Elias is trading away all the bats in the 2025 draft class. So, but no, the pitchers, I just think that, last at the trade deadline, you saw some guys with big ceilings and real potential, like Wellington Arcina, Boston Bateman, come into the organization. The guys who were already here, this minor league core, if you will, really all, for the most part, took a big step forward. You had 1 or 2 big injuries in there, but we saw a lot of guys take big jumps forward. again, and they're in AAA, AA, knocking on the door, getting close to knocking on the door of the big leagues at this point. But I think this set of arms from the 2025 draft class have a real shot of like taking the pitching development and just the pitching in the system to a whole nother level in 2026. We talked about Joseph Giro and JT Quinn a lot this offseason, I know, but like Giro's a 6'8" arm who's up to 95 with like just a truly devastating changeup. Like this is a guy who was set to transfer to Vanderbilt, stuck at Michigan State, won Big Ten Pitcher of the Year honors. He's got like a sub 7% walk rate across 245 career college innings. JT Quinn, another name again, I know we've talked about a lot, that explosive fastball, but when you look at what he did in the Cape Cod League, 25 strikeouts to 2 walks in 14 innings, I think that was huge and a big reason why the Orioles took him. Well, if you look at where he was ranked on, some list, we know the Orioles don't care about public rankings at draft time, but I think the Orioles jumped on him because that was an arm they liked already. But then when you see what he did in the Cape, I think that really boosted his value. But yeah, like other guys like Caden Hunter out of USC, I was literally the only person writing about him at the start of the season. I spent hours trying to find information on this kid. I could not find it, so I did it myself. And I wrote at the time he was 92, 93 from the left side up to 95 with pretty huge carry. 2 different breaking balls, the changeup that flutters under barrels. Love the arm, and I was excited to see the buzz that would come later, and that buzz ended up being he became a 6th-round draft pick of the Orioles. I'm excited to see him. Hunter Allen, 7th-round pick out of the D2 ranks. This is a 6'4", 240 guy with a fastball that touches 100. Kalen Hampson's pitching in the Australian Baseball League right now, young lefty from the NAIA ranks. I know Joe Doyle had Gabe Spires comps on him, called him a data darling to dream on. Brian Orantia, again, this kid was committed to go to the SEC before the Orioles drafted him. He's up to 98 with a deep pitch mix. I said physically, I think he looks a lot like Nestor Herman. I just go through the whole list of pitchers here. Braden Sloan, the 17th rounder at TCU. That's another 6'4" lefty. The Orioles drafted 3 guys, lefties, who were 6'4" or taller. I think Braden Sloan, they're going to add some velo to the fastball, and I think they're going to use him as a starter. We'll see, even though he worked mainly out of the bullpen last year at TCU. And then like the other JUCO arms, KK Clark, Denton Byler, intriguing traits there. Dalton Neuschwander, the D2 arm, we'll see what role they get deployed in, but they've got huge velo. And then the other 6'4" lefty is Holden DeYoung, who had Tommy John surgery last year, but he's a lefty up to 95 miles per hour. Like, I don't know. I just think this entire group, I'm very excited to see what they do in 2026. And again, I just think they can take this whole organization down the farm to another level that we're, of course, going to be excited to see because we've pounded the table for 6 years about pitching development in the system.
Yeah, absolutely excited about all those guys. And Connor Deere, even, I've heard some pretty good things behind the scenes about him. And why not throw in 2024 draft pick Christian Rodriguez into that mix? He didn't pitch in 2025 because of injury. So, hey, we're going to get to see him, hopefully, fingers crossed, in this season. So, yeah, I love this choice. And I also almost cheated and put the next class of international stars, but I'm going to cheat in the next category. So I stuck with my one.
Yeah, the pitching part of last year's draft class, I think, is going to be really exciting to watch. And now, some of that is that we just saw Slater DeBrun traded in the Boz trade, but you still got a good crop of position players left over. So that's going to be deep, but I think the pitching is going to be really fascinating to follow, especially with Quinn and Giroux. What I'm really curious to see is, as college arms, do those guys go to Frederick, or will they get a few innings in Delmarva before getting the bump up, which could have an interesting implication on their stat lines I'll talk about in a little bit. But either way, my hopes for both of those guys are pretty high next season.
Absolutely. I'll go with my pick now. I just went with the starting pitching in general, but really the starters in the upper minors, AAA and AA. And if you look at my soon-to-be-released in article form roster previews for the 2026 minor league season, not even mentioning Cade Privilege, Brandon Young, we'll see where they land in things, but just pure prospects. We have Trey Gibson, Nestor Herman, Levi Wells, Cameron Weston, Alex Pham, Jerron Watts-Brown, Luis De Leon, Blake Money, Wellington Arcenia. Maybe he starts in Frederick, but I hesitantly have him in AA right now, and that's not even going over the bullpen guys, which are also exciting, but I will withhold for now. I just can't wait to see these guys battle it out, especially if the Orioles do have this loaded, deep major league rotation. Like, these guys are going to be clawing it out to be who's going to be the guy who gets that first call, whether it's the bullpen or a spot start in a rotation. How are they going to respond to this? And yeah, I think it's going to be really exciting. Who's going to get a promotion first from Double A to Triple A? So just the entire, and obviously we just talked about all the pitchers basically in the lower minors. Well, now I'm talking about all the pitchers in the upper minors, and I think it's going to be awesome to watch as these guys get used to that Triple A ball, like we talked about a lot with Trey Gibson, second time through there, Levi Wells, et cetera, et cetera. So stoked to see what happens.
Yeah, and I even show some love to the relief prospects as well. I think the Norfolk roster, if you look at it right now, I think they've kind of slowly at the start of the year filled that out with a lot of veteran bullpen depth arms. Your Enoli Paredes and Gene Enriquez, finding 33-year-olds who haven't pitched in pro ball in 10, 11 years, who are still throwing 100 plus miles an hour, which is awesome. But, there's a couple of 4 or 5 guys they've already signed there. So it's going to be a little bit tougher, I think, on the bullpen side for these guys to work their way up. But like, if you look at a lot of the guys who ended last year in Double A, I think some of these guys still might crack Triple A bullpen to start the year. And like Tyson Neighbors, Yaki Rivera, I'll keep saying I think Carter Rousset is kind of interesting. Zane Barnhart, Micah Ashman, friend of the show, potentially Trace Bright, if he can build on the success he found moving into a relief role in the second half of the season. And like, how many players have we had on this show now who come up here and say, when they have the option of picking any pitcher in the system they don't want to face, it's always Gerald Agondo. So I feel like we got to throw his name out there as well. Like, that entire group as well. Like, I'm excited to see who breaks through, who takes on a prominent role in Norfolk and begins to look like a real big league option at some point. And maybe it's 2026. Hopefully you don't need some of these guys. And hopefully it's more 2027 and beyond. But yeah, excited for those guys as well.
And quickly, first time I didn't include Michael Ferret's name in that big group of players. That hurts a tiny bit, but still a great list of names there, even without one of our favorites.
That does hurt a little bit. I will say that it's going to be fun to watch the Tides early on next year, because you generally speak don't see a lot of AAA rotations that are loaded with prospects. But you have to think at a minimum Trey Gibson, Levi Wells, Nestor Herman are going to be in their starting 5 at the beginning of the year, and that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And one other bullpen name that I'm going to throw into the mix that Nick just talked about, and this is a guy that I expect would start at Double A at the highest, but I'm really coming along on Tanner Smith, one of the pitchers that the Orioles picked up in the deal to Padres at the deadline. We saw the walks come down a little bit after the trade, and he looked really, really good in the fall league. So that could be a guy that if he goes to Bowie and he gives them 25, 30 good innings out of the bullpen for the first 2.5 months, you see him in Norfolk sometime in the second half.
Yeah, I'm also becoming a big Tanner Smith fan, and him and Andy Fabian, who fingers crossed he's healthy after he didn't end up going to the AFL. But I think from the righty-lefty side, those are the 2 relievers that I feel like have a chance to really skyrocket through the system. And Zach Fruit, honestly, if he converts to reliever, we'll see what happens there.
So when Shane Baz is the number 5 on the big league Orioles roster, how are we going to divide up all this time watching 5 levels of just hopefully what is pitching master classes?
I'll get a excuse me, I can't even say it. Divorce lawyer on speed dial just in case.
I'll just have a multi-screen setup somewhere. I'll go into mine now for the minor league side, and I'm going to say that it's the shift of high A from Aberdeen to Frederick, and it's not because I'm happy that Aberdeen's losing its team. It's just more so what the implications are going to be from a player development standpoint. We've known for years that Aberdeen can be tough on hitters. It's not exactly accurate to say that it's, an extreme pitcher's park, but it can be tough on hitters, deep power alleys, sometimes hard to pick up the baseball there. They're now going to what has been for a long time one of the most hitter-friendly ballparks in whatever league it is in. Most recently, the MLB Draft League, but for a long time in the Carolina League in Frederick's Harry Grove Stadium. And as I mentioned on our mailbag episode a couple weeks ago, when we first started the show, one of the things we were tracking in kind of conversations off air was, okay, why do pitchers' home run to fly ball rates have this huge spike when they go from low A to high A? Well, it's because they're going to a really hitter-friendly ballpark in Frederick. And I think what we've become accustomed to in the Orioles farm system is that we kind of take for granted that a good pitcher is going to go to high A and succeed because they're at Aberdeen. Now they're going to have to go to Frederick, and it's going to present a new set of challenges. I think for some guys, they may adapt quickly. Others might struggle a little bit, and you'll see the ERA go up, the home run to fly ball rate. But for the hitters, I could see Ike Iris, Vahil, Lloyd putting up big power numbers there. Maybe this is where Nate George's power really starts to come through. I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns, but I still think that it's a storyline we're going to be following pretty closely as we get into the season.
Yeah, I'm super intrigued as well. I'm starting to process and be less selfish because minor league baseball right down the street for me was pretty cool, even if I didn't utilize that as much as I would have liked to. But it was really weird for us as far as evaluating the talent. And I think, I don't know how much of a say the Orioles had in persuading Frederick to come back or if that was like handled between themselves. But I think it will help us be able to evaluate these guys. And maybe the pitchers will take a hit, and that's okay. Go through some adversity and come out the other side on the pitching front is good. I think it's going to be good for guys like Vance Honeycutt, other guys who maybe struggled and stalled out. Thomas Sosa in Aberdeen, I think maybe just the confidence boost they could get from going to a low hitting environment to a good one, or a bad one to a good one, is going to help a lot. And yeah, I like the new logo. Can't wait to get a shirt and or a hat and add it to the collection. So yeah, bring on the Frederick Heath.
Yeah, I'm glad it's back as well. I still live pretty far away, so it's closer. I have Orioles baseball a little bit closer to me, but it's still kind of tough for me to get out to any of the ballparks. But I'm not a single high school teacher anymore who could just pick up and make the hour and 45-minute drive up to Frederick, which I did frequently many years ago. And that ballpark is just, it feels good. It's nice. It's a homey ballpark from a fan perspective. And I feel like from just things we've heard from players themselves and their experience with Aberdeen and knowing the upgrades that are going on in Frederick to help get it up to make sure it's up to standard and everything, I feel like it's going to be just a better experience for all prospects going up through Delmarva and then to Frederick before they get to AA. And, you guys have touched on kind of the player development side of this. It's, the hitters, hopefully they just feel more comfortable. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for those guys to, Delmarva can be a tough place to hit, but then you get to now Frederick, and then in that Prince George's Stadium at the AA level, it's going to be two places that are pretty friendly for hitters and pitchers. Of course, it's tough for these guys. We've talked to prospects on the show who have kind of talked about, yeah, like I might go 0 for 4 today, but I get my report after the game and I see that I had like 3 good at bats, or like I won the day. I got so many points, whatever system they were using at the time. I think Lamar Sparks, named blast from the past. I like that conversation we had with him about how, kind of getting graded almost, and they gamified it a bit for these guys where, yeah, the box score might look bad, but they should feel good about how they played that day based on what the Orioles were telling them and areas they succeeded. I feel like a lot of these guys on the hitting side, it's going to make them feel even better when they can sneak one out a few extra times. And on the pitching side, yeah, it might be tough to, I gave up 2 home runs today, but they know, hey, like, no, you battled and you won and you did exactly what you're supposed to do. That's a fly ball in pretty much every other park. So those pitchers are going to adjust, and if they don't like it, well, they're going to learn how to keep the ball on the ground a little bit more and add that to their repertoire. So I think it's just going to be great for the fans. Again, sad for all of you close to Aberdeen. I know that's got to suck. The draft league baseball isn't necessarily just baseball. It's going to be tough to just go watch like random college guys, and this is probably the 6th or 7th college summer league in terms of like talent wise. But I think it's going to be a better experience for fans and prospects and the whole system as a whole. So.
Yeah, I saw on the Orioles transaction page, it's like all these guys added to the Aberdeen roster. It's like, I don't know any of these names, but hey, I will try to get out there and watch just to see what's going on, and maybe there's a flyer there and we draft one of these guys somehow. So
To still have a draft league team right there in your backyard, like how many of these draft picks pitched for Frederick when they were in the draft league? So Orioles will still have a contingent down there to Aberdeen, I'm sure, on a nightly basis when draft league gets going.
That's a good point. I want to go over to the major league side now. And I want to start with Nick here because I think he's identified for something that is going to be perhaps a hot button issue depending on how this player's season goes. But good or bad, I think we're going to be talking about this guy a lot in 2026.
Yeah, on the major league side, it's Colton Cowser for me. Like I'm not going to get on my Colton Cowser soapbox. It's right here if I need to get on it again. But I don't know. I just think any discussion about him being a guy, he's a platoon bat. I don't want to watch him hit against a left-handed pitcher, or he's Austin Hayes-esque. You know, there's Austin Hayes vibes there in terms of like the injuries and everything. I don't subscribe to those at this point. I'm very interested to see what he does in 2026 because I think Colton Cowser has the potential to elevate this lineup to another level. And even like with the additions of Pete Alonso and Taylor Ward, I still think Cowser can just add that much more. It was just in 2024 where he finished second in AL Rookie of the Year voting after hitting 24 home runs, 51 total extra base hits, and a 119 WRC+. There's a lot of red on that Baseball Savant page. Barrel rate, hard hit rate, bat speed, all great. Defensively, 89th percentile fielding run value, 95th percentile with 10 outs above average, 96th percentile in arm strength. Like, this was a dude. And then 2025, not nearly as impressive because he broke 2 ribs in June and no one knew about it until October. He also didn't have an offseason after breaking his hand at the end of 2024. And so like there are issues at the plate that just healed bones aren't going to fix. I fully understand that. I'm not denying those obvious holes in his game. Those reasons are why I'm not going to sit here and say Cowser will turn it around. And I have zero concern. I do have concerns. But maybe like not having broken ribs is a good first step in getting him back to hopefully improving on 2024. But also like adding Pete Alonso and Taylor Ward maybe helps take the pressure off a bit when he's on the field. And if he's going to be the primary center fielder, who knows? Orioles could still shock us all. But if he's going to be the primary center fielder, yeah, that might step up the intensity and pressure that he faces across a full season. But I don't think it should be a huge transition for him because he excelled in center field coming through the system. And I'm a very, very big believer in that if you can handle center field in Norfolk, you're going to be just fine in the majors. And I've sat in that stadium for over 20 years and watched many fail to tackle that beast. And Cowser handled it very well. So like, all right, we'll see if he can rebound at the plate. And I think if he does, it's going to go a long way in solidifying this lineup. It's just a gauntlet that I think a lot of pitchers the Orioles face this year are going to have an extremely tough time in handling. So
he also broke his thumb in like the second or third game of the season as well, diving headfirst. So a lot of fluky, not to say that, you know, he wasn't at fault for diving headfirst into first base, which is a no-no, but a lot of fluky injuries. Again, didn't have an off season. Like you said, I'm pretty bullish on Cowser moving forward. I think he's like a 2020 type of a guy with, I think, again, good instincts in center field. I've always liked his defense out there. I think he can handle it pretty well. Yeah, maybe if you get a better guy for center field, then he's really good in left. But yeah, I'm bullish on Cowser as well. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just a matter of him having a normal, healthy offseason, which, as Nick pointed out, he really didn't have that last year. And then he's barely back and he gets hurt. And then he gets hurt again with the rib injuries that he played through, and it clearly affected his performance. I think that there's certain flaws in Cowser's game we might always have to live with. Yes, he is going to struggle against lefties, but there's a lot of left-handed hitters in baseball who are bad against left-handed pitching. It's just a matter of, on those days, can you do just enough to keep your spot in the lineup? And if he's able to do that, and he's able to give you plus defense in the outfield, and give you 20 to 25 homers in a good year, this is a player that's going to be pretty valuable to this team. So I think it's just a matter of him being healthy again to show that. And I fully agree with Nick. The additions that the Orioles have made this offseason with Taylor Ward and Pete Alonso are going to take the pressure off of a lot of these young players. And I think Cowser is going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
I'm even excited to see like what he can do in like the stolen base front. I think I think you just said he's a 2020 guy. I agree with that. Even with the broken bones and everything, he still stole 14 bags last year. I didn't think they were going to be that high. I didn't remember how many bases he stole, but yeah, I think 2020, I don't see that being out of the question at all. Could you imagine him like being at the bottom third of this order? Like I feel like you could just take so much pressure off that bat and just say, go be you. You know, hopefully it's as simple as that. The Gunnar Henderson quote, I remember like when he was struggling, and it was just as simple as, what made you great? Go do that. And you saw him take off again when he's working with the sports psychologist behind the scenes. Maybe there's a little bit of that. Stop the dumb mistakes. Like, those we can eliminate fairly easily. But you know, he's still a young guy. I think there's a lot of maturation there. I'm not talking about his, personality or anything. Keep being him. But I'm talking about just like natural baseball skill maturation that comes with every player, as this is year 3. And he's going to have some proven veterans surrounding him in this lineup. And yeah, hopefully he takes off, and 2026 is a much better year for him.
The bottom third of the lineup could be something like Cowser, Basayo, Holiday. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah. All right, I'll go with my 2 major league picks. I couldn't quite just do one. My main one is, speaking of Samuel Basayo, I think this kid is about to become a potential superstar in the major leagues in 2026, as he's in the hunt for the Rookie of the Year, as well as with Dylan Beavers. But we saw him come up and show some flashes of that raw power, of just going out and able to make contact with any ball pitched to him and put really, really good contact on it. He swings really hard. He batted 165 over 118 plate appearances, but his BABIP was 187. I mean, that's absurd. I don't know if I've ever seen a BABIP that low over 100 plate appearances. I'm sure it's happened, but that's really unlucky. So I think in another offseason where I've called him in the past in the minor league system a snowball that rolls downhill, he's one of the rare guys that I think can develop and make improvements during a season, let alone in the offseason where most guys do. He'll be 21 pretty much the entire season until late August. So I just expect him to come out. And like we said, if he settles in at the beginning of the season at the bottom of the order, I think he's going to really wow some guys, work his way up to the middle of that order by the end of the season, and be a real weapon for the next, 8-9 years? Let's go.
The age thing still gets me, that he's still going to be that young when he comes up. And yeah, like we said, we made this point a lot, and again, he's got to prove it. He still has a lot to prove in the major leagues. But when you're talking about a lot of these prospects who are coming up, if there's one guy who like I would bet a lot on, that he puts in the work and he's determined enough to break through, I think it's Samuel Basayo. And I don't want to make that sound like every guy who comes up isn't giving it their all and doesn't want it. They all do, but we know how Basayo, no one is going to be tougher on him than himself. And I think this is a kid who just gets it. I think he gets it off the field. I think he gets it on the field. He did a lot of growing. He had a lot of his injuries coming up were literally growing pains. He was growing faster than his bones could handle. And so I think he's settling in. He's got the contract. He doesn't have to worry about any of that. You don't have to worry about the family. You don't have to worry about the money. It's just focus on baseball and getting better. He's been in the cage all off season. He's posting the clips. He's staying focused. It sounded like he was going to be playing in the Dominican Winter League. It sounded like he was like starting practice and was going to start playing, but I don't think he has. I'd say I'll take that as a good thing. Just don't risk any of the injuries out there. Keep doing your thing behind the scenes, and yeah, hopefully a big breakout year for Basayo.
Yeah, I go back to something John Mioli said when he was on the show a few weeks ago. I feel like if Basayo gets off to a hot start, you look after the first 2 or 3 weeks he's producing, he's going to run away with American League Rookie of the Year by the end, and it's not going to be close. And the impact that Basayo could have, not just on the field, but off the field, is really the first homegrown international star that this team has had. Could be really something for this franchise. So I'm looking forward to seeing him in his first full season.
Yeah, his first full season timed up with the biggest international free agent class coming up in a few weeks, which we've talked about on the Substack quite a bit. Yeah, it's going to be an exciting time for the international product in the organization.
All right, people, serious question time. Did you know that driving high is considered driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state. That means even in states where marijuana is legal. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, well, you're wrong. If you're high, they can tell. Your friends can tell. Your coworkers can tell. Even your parents can tell. Everyone can tell. So what makes you think that law enforcement officers don't know when you're driving high? You'd be wrong. They can tell too. Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you're not. Because the bottom line is, if you feel different, you drive different, and driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high, get a DUI. Paid for by NHTSA.
Did you know Microsoft has officially ended support for Windows 10? Upgrade to Windows 11 with an LG Gram laptop. Voted PC Mag's Reader's Choice Top Laptop Brand for 2025. Thin and ultra lightweight, the LG Gram keeps you productive anywhere. And Windows 11 gives you access to free security updates and ongoing feature upgrades. Visit lgusa.com/iHeart for great seasonal savings on LG Gram laptops with Windows 11. PC Mag Reader's Choice used with permission. All rights reserved.
And my other one, which don't have to go into quite as much, but I just think Kyle Bradish, fully operational, back on the mound, combined with Shane Baz, like I'm going to try to watch like almost every pitch these guys throw this year, as unrealistic as that might be. I think Baz, we've talked about a lot, 26 years old, incredible stuff. First full season this past year. And with this pitching development group, and then Bradish, who comes back and has a 2.53 ERA and over a win in only 32 innings pitched at the end of the 2025 season. He looked as good as ever coming right back, other than the command, which obviously is the last thing to come. And he's 29. Maybe he's an extension candidate at some point too. So yeah, those two right-handed flamethrowers are going to be what I'm tuning into a lot of games for.
I'll just say about Bradish, in listening to a lot of fantasy content right now across the community, he's a hot name for a lot of reasons. And I'm biased, but I'm 20 drafts in already for 2026. I've got 40% Kyle Bradish. So if Bradish doesn't return to form this year, the Orioles and my 2026 are both going down the drain. We ride together. But also, like, not financial advice. And I understand, like, there may be some cap this season coming off surgery, but Bradish is currently plus 4,500 odds to win the Cy Young next year, which is they have guys like Trey Savage, Garrett Cole, and Nathan Eovaldi as better odds to win the Cy Young in 2026. He looked great in those 30-something innings to close out last season. I don't see why he can't establish himself as the ace of this staff. Define it how you want, but like a legitimate like MLB ace of this staff. Like I'd put a couple dollars on Kyle Bradish, throw that in there, have fun with that one. But yeah, both these guys. If Shane Baz can build on what he did last year, coming back, that trade's going to look fantastic as well. So,
starting this for me, when he came back at the end of last season, and by that point the Orioles season had long been over with, and I'm looking at him just like, okay, let's just hope that the fastball velocity looks good. Let's hope that one or two of the secondaries are working, but I don't really expect big numbers right away from him. And if he ends this season with a 5 ERA over 5 starts, don't hold that against him too much because we know it's going to be part of this recovery. But he looked like he pretty much picked up right where he left off, maybe minus the command a little bit. But, Bob, you're right. That is generally the last thing to come back. So what I expect is that in the beginning of the year, we're going to see Bradish have some of the starts that he had towards the end of last season where he might only go 4 innings or he might only go a little bit into the 5th because of its pitch count. But the strikeouts are there. The walks aren't too bad. He's not giving up a lot of hard contact. And I could see him being really successful next year. And then with Baz, you can see that all of the pieces are in place for him to really take it to the next level. How many innings the Orioles get from him this coming season is a question mark, although less of a question mark than it is with Bradish. But if they can just figure out what in his arsenal they can improve, refine, or replace with another pitch to pair with a fastball that is as dominant as it is, we might finally see Boz move into that top of the rotation arm that he was considered coming up through the Rays system.
Yeah, you talked about Bradish's Cy Young odds. I'm kind of curious to see what Shane Boss's are, because I could almost see him like a Hunter Brown type of ascent this year, honestly.
I'll go over to mine now, and for me, this is a pretty straightforward one. I think it's just going to be seeing Pete Alonso in an Orioles uniform for the first time. Now, credit to the Orioles social media team. They've gotten a lot out of that press conference in the last few weeks. So I think that if, in case you didn't feel like it was real, they've made sure that you've known it's real, that he did sign with the Orioles and he had all these positive things to say at the press conference. But this is probably the most, and don't feel like it's an exaggeration to say, the most significant free agent signing that this franchise has had in quite a long time. And what he could do for this lineup over the first few years of this contract, to me, is pretty significant. Give you, first of all, a guy that's going to go out there every day in a good season. He's going to hit between 35 and 40 homers. And now that I've gotten, thanks to John Mioli's work over at the Banner, gotten to understand a little bit more about the improvements that he made going into the 2025 season, I have reasons to believe that it is going to carry over. It seems like he has made an effort to understand that as he gets older, he needs to become a more complete hitter, and he's addressed that. But I just feel like on an opening day, when you see him there in the Orioles uniform, you see reaction from fans as he's coming down the orange carpet, it's going to feel a lot more real than it does right now.
Yeah, that is a great point. That is going to be an exciting, and especially say it's Framber Valdez. I know I'm getting a little hung up on it, but just the new names. But Pete Alonso, yeah, I think he's going to be like the biggest boom from the crowd, and just I'm getting goosebumps honestly just thinking about it right now. And yeah, I think he's probably the biggest free agent since Miguel Tejada. I would say that was pretty big at the time. I do love, my favorite thing we've learned, or I've learned about him since the signing, is the thing that you're talking about, where basically just getting into analytics and the player development side of things just this before this past season in 2025, which he had a tremendous season. And if he can continue to go down that path, hopefully can stave off some of the decline that comes naturally with age. And yeah, maybe this contract isn't going to be as much of a burden in years 4 and 5 as we might have originally thought when it first put pen to paper.
Yeah, I still can't believe it. No matter how many tweets or social media posts Orioles put out. I think I told you guys the story off air, I think, the other week. But last time I was at Camden Yards, I believe was Orioles versus Mets in 2023. And that was the first time I had been since I went to a weekend series and the Padres were in town back in 2019, pre-COVID. So it was... Watching Gunnar Henderson hit a home run, watching that full ballpark erupt, it gave me goosebumps then. But like 2 rows in front of me, there was a family in Mets jerseys. The kid had on a Pete Alonso Mets jersey, and he had a sign, and I don't remember exactly what the sign said, but basically it was begging the Mets to sign Alonso to a long-term deal. And I told you guys, I don't know if that family came down from New York for the game or if they were local, live in Baltimore, and was just big Mets fans for whatever reason. But I like to believe that they live in Baltimore, and that kid got a new Pete Alonso jersey for Christmas this year. And he's going to be at opening day to see his favorite player play for his new favorite team. And one of my new favorite players on my favorite team as well. Gunnar Henderson still going to take the cake there. But like, I imagine it's going to feel a lot like watching Corbin Burns' first start. Like for me, that felt electric, even at home. Like I could feel it. And I still remember Mike Trout tagging him for that home run in like the first inning, I believe, and just not being concerned and just being like, we got Corbin freaking Burns on the mound. We're good. If it was any other these Orioles pitchers we've been watching through the dark ages, this game's over. I'm turning the game off on opening day in the 3rd inning. Like Corbin Burns has got this. 6 innings, 1 hit, 1 run, no walks, 11 strikeouts. Like offense put up 11 runs behind him. Like, I don't know. I think a Pete Alonso bomb off Joe Ryan or Pablo Lopez, assuming neither's traded. One of those guys gets the opening day start. I don't think I'm prepared for that kind of feeling of watching Pete Alonso do that on opening day if that happens.
Oh, you just reminded me. The peak of the 2025 season for the Orioles was opening day when they hit 5 home runs and crushed the Blue Jays, and it was all downhill from there. But yeah, great stuff. I keep forgetting with the anticipation of the next move. I keep forgetting the stuff that's already happened. So yeah, it's cool to get a chance to actually reflect on the signing that happened 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, they also didn't trade for a guy who hit 36 home runs last year that we just don't talk about.
We go into our last category here, which is our wild card. And this is where we can just kind of pick anything we wanted. It could be a league-wide thing. It could be an Orioles thing, whatever it was. And I'm going to start with Bob because Bob just kind of touched on like things that were a big story briefly that we've kind of forgotten about. And up until I saw the outline for the show, I'm like, oh, yeah, that was a big story a few months ago. And now it's just around the corner. We've got a pretty big rule change coming to the majors in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, with the pitch clock change that happened, what was it, before the 2023 season? We were excited for that, and I think it's paid off great. I love the new pace of the game. And the next big thing is coming soon to a spring training facility near you. That would be the ABS automated ball strikes for the uninitiated challenge system, which I think you're going to get 2 per team, not 2 challenges, but like get 2 wrong per team, and then once that happens, you're done. You can't challenge anymore. So I like it. I'm excited to see how it plays out. I kind of like it more right now than just a full-blown ABS system where that's just how it runs. I like the gamification, the challenge, the strategy to that, and maybe they'll refine how many wrong challenges you get over time. But yeah, I'm very excited to see how this plays out in the 2026 season.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. It was awesome in AAA. I don't have any hard data to back this up, so I could be completely wrong. But this is just memory from watching so many AAA games. You feel like the Tides are pretty successful at getting calls overturned. And I think that's going to become like another skill that could really help teams. And like you said, the strategy that's going to go into it, when and how to use challenges, I think that's going to get interesting. I think that's going to be something that as a manager, that's going to be something that you're going to need to, this is something else that that can really impact the game. And I'm curious to see if we hear of any like Orioles specific rules or see tendencies, because I don't know of anything that players were specifically told in Norfolk, but I do know for a fact that other teams have had strict rules and guidelines for players on how they challenge, when they challenge, who challenges, even telling like certain players you are not allowed to challenge.
Desayo, you are not. You're going to challenge everything, and you do not have the greatest. Yeah,
he probably would. And they're like, no, this was a whole foot outside. But yeah, I don't know if the Orioles are going to do that again with Craig Albarnez now at the helm. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to hear any conversations the players and coaches have publicly about this. I'm interested to hear what they have to say. So yeah, I think this is fantastic for the game. And I agree. When they did the 3 games, full computer calling balls and strikes, and then 3 games on the weekend doing the challenge system, the challenge system by far and away was so much better. I think this is going to be another fantastic rule for helping grow the game and making just the product better on the field and just getting calls right.
And honestly, I think it's going to help at the game experience, because they put it up on the big screen and it's the anticipation. Did we challenge correctly? Yes or no?
And good timing with that new video board coming in Camden Yards this year. There's 2 aspects of it to me that I like, and Nick just touched on one of them, which is the strategy element of it. How are players going to challenge? Who's going to be allowed to challenge? What situations are the best to challenge? And there's a lot of things that are going to come into focus as we get into next year. And the other one is that I think that this is going to work better than instant replay does in actually maintaining the pace of the game, because I still think MLB made the right call introducing instant replay. The technology's there. You got to get the calls right. But especially since the pitch clock was introduced, I now feel like that's a dead spot in the game where there's a challenge and the challenge just takes too long. And you know that unless it's overwhelming, the call in the field is going to stand. This has a much faster payoff. And when I saw it in the minor leagues and then saw it again in spring training last year, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is nothing like a typical manager's challenge in the game over whether or not someone trapped a fly ball. This is pretty much instant result. You look up at the screen and you can tell, was that pitch a ball? Was it a strike? And the game just picks up from there. So this is not going to be something that has, I think, an unintended consequence of ruining another part of the game. Which for me, for MLB to find things like that to make the game better helps a lot for the growth of the sport.
Yeah, because I'll tell you, it just reminded me of college game. It is college game got a little bit faster because of pitching coaches aren't calling every single pitch from the dugout, and you have like the more technology that can call in plays there immediately. But the replay system in college baseball, when the umpire crew then has to meet, discuss, and then they go and like run into the dugout or behind the dugout, and it's like a 10-minute process, it kills the game. But yeah, I like that point as well, that it's going to get the calls right and it's going to be instant. Like people who are, I love hearing other people who like don't watch minor league baseball. I love hearing them when they've seen it in action, their response to it. They're like, I think like Rates and Barrels talking about like Eno Sarris getting giddy over this thing. Like it's like tennis when they pop it up on the screen. Like I think a lot of fans are going to find that and they are really going to enjoy it. I can go with mine. We can do. So I think mine's more of a prediction. So I don't know if this was the best fit for here, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. And we've kind of touched on this a little bit. It kind of builds on my minor league thing that I want to look at and Bob's minor league thing, storylines that we're excited to see, the 2025 draft class pitchers and just upper minors pitching as a whole. I wrote down that I think to keep it Orioles and even Orioles minor league specific, at least minor league to start, I'm interested. I think this year we see somebody, this is the true statement made by an Elias pitcher, someone scouted by this regime, drafted by this regime, signed by this regime, developed by them, the whole start to finish process. I think this is the year we see somebody really step up and take control in the major leagues and takes this entire pitching development conversation with the Orioles to the next level. Like whether it's, maybe it could be Cage Stroud. He already got that head start there. He just becomes a seventh inning demon. But whether it's like Trey Gibson or if it's Nestor Herman, maybe it's Levi Wells. I've said before, I think Herman could be the guy. Levi Wells and Trey Gibson maybe get more national attention, but Nestor Herman could just breeze past all of his peers in 2026 and end up being the best among that entire group. Maybe it's a dark horse like Blake Money or Luis De Leon is really, really good and unlocks another level in 2026. Maybe it's Brandon Young who comes out and surprises us all with a big year from what he learned last year. I don't know who. And again, this is more of a kind of like a prediction thing, but still, like just based on the growth we've seen the last 2 years in the pitching department, I think this is the year that someone steps up and the rest of the baseball world outside of Baltimore says like, wow, they nailed that. Great job, Orioles. You crushed that one. And he's there to stay. Whether it's a prominent bullpen role or in the rotation, either way, someone's cracking the big leagues and sticking this year.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like it. And shout out to Erman and Steve Molesky, who on the podcast, they had an interview there where it sounds like he's trying to add velocity this offseason, which sure, as long as it doesn't mess him up too much and he can continue to have that command and pitch mix, then that could certainly help his case.
Yeah, I really hope that this is the year we see that kind of statement. And whether it's a Trey Gibson emerging in the rotation or Cade Stroud solidifying himself as a high leverage reliever, I think would help a lot. But there's two other components that I would add to this, which is that the Kyle Braddis conversation, is he count as a homegrown Elias product? No, not in the technical sense, but this was a guy that a lot of people thought coming through the Angels system was a reliever, if he was going to be a big leaguer at all. And by the way, he only had one season in the minor leagues with the Angels. So I think the Orioles deserve some credit there. And if Braddis goes out and takes a big step forward this season, that's a win. If Trevor Rogers builds on what he did last year, that's a win. If Shane Baz makes any sort of improvement from last season and is able to build on that in the next 2 years, that's another big one. And that's all pitching development in its own way, shape, or form. But I agree with you, Nick. It would be different to have someone that was scouted, drafted, or signed by this regime, came through the system, really take it to the next level in the majors.
Yeah, just take out all of those excuses. Oh, they didn't draft Bradish, right? They didn't draft this guy, even though, Orioles developed Bradish into who he is. We mention that all the time. They deserve a lot of credit for a lot. This Trevor Rogers thing, they deserve full credit there as well. But yeah,
you really want to give the Angels credit for developing Kyle Bradish? I mean, come on.
No, just a little. It would be just a little bit different to just be like, that is a full-on Elias regime guy. I think that'll be a lot of fun, and hopefully that does happen this year.
I'll go over to mine, and it's kind of a similar theme, but a broader focus on the whole league, which is I think the American League Rookie of the Year race this year is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And as I was thinking about it leading up to this show, I kind of get 2022 vibes from it, where you had Julio Rodriguez and Adley, two guys that in any other year would have been far and away the winner of American League Rookie of the Year. And although Rodriguez ended up winning that by a considerable margin, there was still a little bit of a debate over the final weeks of that season. Okay, who's more deserving of American League Rookie of the Year? Who's going to have the better career, on and on between Rodriguez and Rutzman? This year, I think we're heading back to that in the AL. Trey Savage, riding the high of his postseason performance, is already being anointed the front runner going into next year. But we also have Samuel Basallo. Kevin McConaughey on the Tigers is also getting a lot of love early on. Couple of names I'll throw out there, though. I think Chase DeLauder, if he puts up a full healthy season, is going to be right in the thick of it. I could see him in the conversation for Rookie of the Year. And don't sleep on Dylan Beavers. I know that he doesn't have the prospect profile of Basallo, and it already seems like he might be heading towards a platoon role, at least initially. But it's going to be strong side platoon. So he's going to be going out there against righties a lot of times. And if he's able to build on what he did during that short stint last year, it might not be enough to win Rookie of the Year, but it could be enough for him to be a finalist, to be a guy that you look at the end of the year and it's like, oh, from start to finish, maybe this was not the rookie who put up the best numbers, but he was probably the steadiest performer in the group. So don't sleep on Beavers in this conversation right now.
I'm not going to comment on the phrasing, but 450 to 500 plate appearances for a guy like Beavers. Yeah. And he's not even in, at least on the website I'm looking. If you want to make some money, Dylan Beavers not even in the top 10 of the favorites for AL Rookie of the Year. I'm seeing Trey Savage, Kevin McGonigal, Samuel Basallo at plus 700 on what I'm looking at, which I think that's pretty good value too. Connolly early for the Red Sox, Chase DeLauder, Carter Jensen, Travis Bazzana, Walker Jenkins, Peyton Toll, and Colt Emerson are their top 10. So, yeah, that sounds like a pretty good race to me.
Yeah. This list I'm looking at also, it doesn't have Beavers. Didn't have another name you mentioned there as well. It's definitely, and you see a lot more on the NL side, but looking at some of these NL names, they're just not as interesting. I think that one's a super top heavy race. But yeah, the AL side, I think this one could be intense. I do agree. Trey Savage is the odds on favorite right now, and I do agree. He didn't even have to be great next year because he's got so much. People love the arm slot. People love his postseason performance. This kid was an animal at ECU, and I hope he has a great career, just not against the Orioles, and I hope ever pitch in the World Series again with the Blue Jays at least. But I do agree that, yeah, the voters, the league as a whole, if he's even just decent, he's going to get a leg up. But you look at some of the other names around him, it's Murakami with the White Sox. I was not a fan of Murakami at all. That profile coming over from Japan. I hope he does have some success, but yeah, and then it's Basallo there at 3 as like the third best odds on the AL side of things. I think as of right now, it is Savage, Basallo, DeLauder, like a top 3 race. I've missed out. I've been hearing Carter Jensen's name a lot this week, and I had never heard of his name before this week, to be honest, in the Orioles system. But yeah, like Travis Bazzana, I don't think he starts in the majors. Who knows how much time he's going to get? I'm not really seeing like any other names that could challenge. Someone's going to pop up. There's going to be a surprise, of course, but yeah, I think Basallo's in a pretty good spot to take the AL side of this.
One thing I'll throw out real quick. What happens if Amai signs in the American League?
Guess the Orioles are going to win Rookie of the Year one way or the other.
That's another one with the hype. Because I feel like even when, when Yamamoto signed, was he the last big one? Before Roki Sasaki, I feel like even when Yamamoto was signing and Roki Sasaki wasn't over yet, I feel like it was always like, oh yeah, but Roki Sasaki is the guy that you're really going to want to target. I feel like with that kind of hype coming over already, that's the Trey Savage thing. There's so much hype already. It's going to be hard to beat him. But if he's on the Orioles, who cares? Let's lean into that.
Absolutely. And for that does it for this episode. We have had a very fun 2025. Thank you to our listeners for your constant support throughout the year. Thank you to our patrons. And as a reminder, if you are not a member of our Patreon community yet, you can join at the $3, $5, or $10 levels and have access to our top 50 countdown, which will begin next week with daily episodes of Prospects 50 all the way up to number 1, which will drop sometime in mid-February. Bob, Nick, and myself will be recording those individually. You're not going to want to miss that. We will be back next week for our first... Oh, go ahead, Nick.
So I just going off that end of year vibes thing. I just want to say, even though 2025 was like shit, I saved it to the end of the episode. And we saw it in like the downloads and listens, especially at some point in the year, but it has crept back up significantly at the end of the year. And we saw so much growth on like the YouTube side. We're not YouTube experts, but still people are coming over here and watching and liking and subscribing to the channel. That's growing. Substack grew at an alarming rate. Like there's still so much growth. The Patreon side of things, we still have so many patrons, and a lot of them are very active in Discord. And it's just amazing to see the interaction that still takes place on social media and everything. We're going on year 6 when 2026 rolls around, which is hard to believe. And like, yeah, shout out to everybody who has been riding with us this entire time.
Yes, truly thank you to this community that we've been able to build around this podcast. And whether you're a patron or not, appreciate the listen, the view. It's been a dream. So yeah, thanks.
And one thing we have to really look forward to in 2026, our 500th episode.
Here we go. Got to get somebody bigger than Mike Elias.
Get David Rubenstein on the horn.
There we go.
And for that does it for this episode. We'll be back next week for our first new episode of the new year. In the meantime, you can check out our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, and Twitch. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to check out our Patreon community. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.
Did you know Microsoft has officially ended support for Windows 10? Upgrade to Windows 11 with an LG Gram laptop. Voted PC Mag's Reader's Choice Top Laptop Brand for 2025. Thin and ultra lightweight, the LG Gram keeps you productive anywhere. And Windows 11 gives you access to free security updates and ongoing feature upgrades. Visit lgusa.com/iHeart for great seasonal savings on LG Gram laptops with Windows 11. PC Mag Reader's Choice used with permission. All rights reserved.
Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy Holiday. If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.